Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I really need you to stay with me on this one, because what's happening in Britain's housing market right now is so shocking that it almost sounds unbelievable when you hear it out loud. Britain is now building fewer homes than at any point since the Second World War. Think about that for a second. This was a time when cities were being bombed, materials were rationed, workers were fighting overseas, and the entire country was focused on survival. And yet, even in those conditions, Britain managed to build more homes than it is managing to build today. Now fast forward to the present, a country at peace, with advanced technology, global supply chains, and enormous wealth, and we're failing to house our own people. That alone should set alarm bells ringing. But what makes this even more disturbing is what's happening at the same time to house prices. Despite this historic collapse in home building, the average house price in the UK has just smashed through the £300,000 mark for the first time ever. That figure isn't just a number on a screen. It represents a complete break between reality and logic. If homes are so scarce, prices rising might make sense, but the scale and timing of this surge tells us something much deeper is wrong. Back in the year 2000, the average house cost around £80,000. In a little over 2 decades, prices have nearly quadrupled, while wages have barely crawled forward. For first-time buyers today, the idea of owning a home isn't a milestone anymore. It's a fantasy. Many now need over 14 years just to save for a deposit, and that's assuming they're living rent-free with parents and putting away every spare pound. For most people, that simply isn't possible. The latest government figures make the situation even more grim. In the 12 months leading up to September 2024, England completed just over 84,000 new homes. That's not a typo. 84,000 homes for a population of more than 56 million people. The government's own target is 300,000 homes per year, and we're not even reaching a third of that. This isn't a temporary slowdown or a blip caused by one bad year. This is the result of decades of failure, delay, and political cowardice, all colliding at once. So why is this happening? Why, in one of the richest countries in the world, are we unable to build enough homes? The answers are messy, frustrating, and deeply political. Britain has some of the most restrictive planning laws in the developed world. Getting approval for housing can take years, sometimes decades, as developers navigate endless bureaucracy, environmental assessments, and fierce local opposition. NIMBYism, or not in my backyard, has become almost a national pastime. Existing homeowners organize against new developments, arguing about traffic, school places, or the so-called character of their area. But beneath all of that is a simple truth. They're protecting their own property values. Any new homes nearby are seen as a threat to their personal wealth, so they fight them relentlessly. At the same time, builders are being squeezed by soaring costs. Materials are more expensive, labor is harder to find, and interest rates have made borrowing far more costly. Many developments are now deemed financially unviable before construction even begins. But perhaps the most controversial issue of all is land. Britain is often described as a small crowded island with no space left to build, but that simply isn't true. Only about 8% of England is actually built on. The real problem isn't land availability, it's land ownership. Huge areas are held by wealthy estates, corporations, and investment funds that have no incentive to develop quickly. They can sit on land, watching its value rise year after year, without lifting a finger. This has created a system where land banking is not only common, but incredibly profitable. Developers buy land, secure planning permission, and then wait. As the housing shortage worsens, the value of that land skyrockets. Building immediately would actually reduce their future profits. So even when homes are approved, many are never built. The incentive structure is completely broken. The human cost of this crisis is devastating. Homelessness is rising to levels not seen in generations. Families are being forced into temporary accommodation for months or even years, sometimes living out of a single hotel room. Young professionals are stuck in house shares well into their 30s and 40s. The idea of having space to raise a family feels out of reach for millions. Renting, once a stepping stone, has become a permanent trap. Landlords hold enormous power, able to raise rents or evict tenants with minimal notice, while tenants are too afraid to complain about poor conditions. And the mental health impact is severe. Doctors are increasingly reporting that housing insecurity is a major driver of anxiety and depression. We're raising a generation that has never experienced stability, never known what it feels like to plan long term, because their living situation could change at any moment. This isn't just a personal tragedy, it's an economic one too. Businesses are struggling to recruit because workers can't afford to live near their jobs. Productivity is falling as people spend hours commuting from the few places they can afford. Consumer spending is shrinking because so much income is swallowed by housing costs. The Bank of England has repeatedly warned that this situation poses a serious risk to financial stability. When such a huge share of household income goes into housing, any shock to the system, whether it's rising interest rates or a recession, could trigger mass defaults and repossessions. The next crisis could be far worse than 2008. Politicians know all of this, and some are finally talking about it, but action remains painfully slow. Governments promise planning reform, faster approvals, and crackdowns on land banking, but we've heard these promises for decades. The truth is brutal. Older homeowners vote in large numbers, and their wealth is tied directly to rising house prices. Any serious attempt to bring prices down is seen as political suicide. So politicians dance around the issue, offering half measures while the crisis deepens. There are solutions that could work. Massive public housing programs, like those built after World War II, could transform the market almost overnight. Tax changes could penalize land banking and empty properties. Planning rules could be relaxed in targeted areas. Some experts argue we need to stop treating homes as investment assets and start treating them as places to live again. Other countries have shown this is possible. Germany and Switzerland have stable rental markets with strong tenant protections. Japan has kept housing affordable in Tokyo by making it easy to build almost everywhere. But in Britain, powerful interests benefit from the status quo. Major developers are sitting on land approved for hundreds of thousands of homes that they haven't built. Their profits are strong, their shareholders are happy, and there's no incentive to flood the market and reduce prices. Foreign investment adds another layer of distortion. Properties are bought by overseas investors who never live in them, leaving entire developments dark and empty while locals struggle to find housing. In some parts of London, more than 1 in 5 homes sits vacant. The rental market is just as broken. Demand is overwhelming, rents are soaring faster than wages, and tenants are forced into bidding wars for basic homes. Standards are slipping, mold, poor insulation, broken heating, overcrowding, yet tenants are too scared to speak up. Buy-to-let investors have snapped up millions of homes that once would have gone to first-time buyers, turning housing into a financial instrument rather than a basic need. There's even a darker side rarely discussed. British property has become a magnet for laundering dirty money. Weak transparency rules allow corrupt officials and criminals to hide behind shell companies, pushing prices even higher. Cleaning this up would require serious political courage, and so far, that courage has been absent. So here we are. Britain is building fewer homes than during World War II, while prices surge past £300,000. Homeowners grow richer on paper, while renters and young people are locked out permanently. This isn't just an economic failure, it's a moral one. It raises huge questions about fairness, opportunity, and what kind of country we want to be. Are we willing to accept a future where home ownership is reserved for the wealthy and everyone else rents forever? Or do we finally admit that something fundamental is broken and demand real change? This crisis didn't happen by accident. It's the result of decades of policy choices that put profit ahead of people. Reversing it won't be easy, but the alternative is far worse. A country where millions have no stake in the future, no stability, and no hope. The comparison to World War II isn't just shocking, it's damning. If Britain could house its people then, it can do it now. The question is whether those in power are willing to challenge the interests that benefit from failure before it's too late. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates on the UK housing market, the economy, and the real stories affecting people across the country.